All right, welcome to Dance Ninjas dance training number 43. Can you take the bird out? Yeah, thank you. On top of things. Okay, so I'm testing out a new camera and audio. So let me know how the camera and audio is. Go ahead and just say, I can hear you, I can see you. If you've been on a past coaching call, type in that. Type in what your experience is compared to that call. Let's see. And chat. And we'll get started in just a moment. Okay. So like usual, I want to just prep you guys and let you know that you're welcome to ask any questions in the box there, and I will answer them when appropriate. And I do have one write-in question or two write-in questions, actually a few write-in questions today that I want to cover if there are no regular questions. If there's no questions from anybody on the call. But if there are questions from those of you on the call right now, I'll go ahead and handle those first and do the write-ins towards the end of the call, or when there's a lull in questions, we can do those. But, and I'll give you about 30 seconds to think of any questions that you have. Remember, anything basically that you're struggling with in your dancing, or that you're excited to learn in your dancing, any questions related on improving your dancing, ask away in the comments section. And if it has to do with something that you're learning in Dance Ninjas in one of the core lessons or something else, even better. But it certainly doesn't have to be limited to that. And I still haven't seen if anybody can actually see and hear me. William, Gerald, can you guys just type in and make sure, message me something that says, yes, I can see you or I can hear you. So I know that this is working with my new camera. Or even just all okay would be good. All right. So I see it's working. And let's see. I think I haven't seen any questions yet, so I'll go ahead with the first question. Christina, can I borrow you for this? So the first question is just briefly, what is counterbalance? And Christina's going to help me out. Christina Musser, badass dancer. And we're just going to explain counterbalance in its simplest concept is the idea of using your partner to stay in balance. So if we have a connection and we're not in counterbalance, if I release that connection, you'll see we don't move. We stay right where we are. And it doesn't matter where that connection is. If the connection's on the back, right, in a back position here, or if the connection is chest to chest. If one of us were to step away at this point, either one of us, the other one would stay right where they are because we're on our own balance. We're not in counter. So she stepped away, I stayed right where I am. However, if we're in counterbalance, that means we're using our partner's balance to, or using our partner to stay in balance, right? So if we're leaning into each other, now, if one of us were to let go, we would both move, right? So if I let go, boom, we both move. And counterbalance can go in different directions. So that was inward counterbalance, but it can be outward counterbalance. Now, if we let go, we both move away, right? It could be sideways counterbalance where we're going side to side. And if we both let go, boom, we move. So counterbalance, simply put, is using your partner to stay in balance. And we can do drastic forms of it where we sit really far away from each other, right? And even now, if we let go, ideally, I don't want us to fall. I want us to walk out, right? So ideally, no matter where we are, we just walk out of it. Of course, there's extreme examples of counterbalance where I put her into a dip, where it's going to be a lot harder for her to walk out of it. And at the same time, our goal in social counterbalance is to be able to walk out of any position. But counterbalance can even be done in dips. Thanks. The next question, let's see. And if you want to learn more about counterbalance, I have a whole core lesson, Supercharging Your Counterbalance, that really goes over all the dynamics of inward and outward counterbalance and speed of going into it, speed of going out of it, and really like honing every moment of the counterbalance to perfecting it so that you're with your partner every moment of the way, rather than just at the end and just at the beginning you're matching each other, but you're able to go in and out perfectly together as one synchronized unit. And that's the Supercharging Your Counterbalance lesson. Let's see if we have any questions on that. Feel free to pop them in. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next topic, which relates to counterbalance as well. This next topic is about when learning any kind of movement, but we'll use the example of counterbalance. What's the difference between the standard learning methods that you would learn in most classes that you're going to take versus the universal learning method, where you're able to use any one technique for a lot of different partners, right? So if you've taken a normal class, usually you learn a technique where you go into counterbalance at a specific moment in dance, and then you come out at a specific moment in dance. Or maybe you stay in it the whole time, or maybe you never use it in this particular movement. But whatever it is, you learn a specific movement that either requires counterbalance, doesn't require counterbalance, or something in between has some counterbalance in it, right? And then that movement works as long as you can get your partner to do that movement with you the same way, using the counterbalance at the same time as you use it, or not using it when you don't use it. Whereas in the universal learning method, the idea is, instead of learning a specific movement that requires it at a specific time, we take that movement or any movement and we learn how to be able to do that movement in counterbalance, without counterbalance, with different speeds, directions, positions, lengths of time, and all sorts of different things, so that we can adjust to each partner and do that same movement, or really any movement, with any partner, no matter what method of counterbalance they use to do that movement, or to do any movement that they do. So if I were to show more example of that, so if you look at, let's say we're just doing something that requires step, hold, step, hold. That's our movement, right? And Actually, let me just make sure we can see the movement. Okay, so let's say we're doing something. Let me back up a little. This way. Let's say we're going step, hold, or if you want to see it in a different direction, it's step, hold, right? Just 2 steps, right? And the holds aren't that important. You could do anything there. But when we take a step, we can take that step and we can go into counterbalance, and then we can come out. And then we can take the other step, go into counterbalance, and come out, right? And that might be a way that you learned a move. Boom, bop, step, or step, hold, right? So you might have learned that way of doing this movement, but that would be the normal way to learn it. If you're doing the universal learning method, you want to start looking at, okay, well, let's just look at how do we go away from each other and stay in balance, and then come back, and let's do it faster and really slow, right? Let's do it deeper, right? And come out almost all the way out, but not all the way out, and go back in. So we're playing with different methods of going in, faster, slower, maybe even from different positions. We could do it from, instead of this position, we could do it back to back, where our feet are going away from each other, right? As we move away and then come forward, move away and come forward, right? And that's an exaggerated example, but I want you to see there's really a lot of different ways that we can play with this concept of going away, using our partner's weight to stay in balance, and then coming out of it. And then we can try that with the move, any move. But let's say we want to do it in this one move. Now, instead of going this method, we're doing it at very specific times, right? We can stay out, and we can go step, hold, where we're always out. We can come up and stay in, boom, boom, right? We can go out and stay out for 2 beats, and come in and stay in for 2 beats, and then go out, boom, and in, right? And we can even practice the same move from here, where we're not in counterbalance and we're just going step, hold, boom, bop, bop. But then we can also try to do the same movement, boom, while we're going more and more in counterbalance and coming out, right? Or staying in it. So we're playing with positions, lengths, speeds of going in and out of counterbalance, and really trying, how can we do this in any move we do, right? It doesn't just have to be that move. We could look at any move that we practice and see, how do I do it in counterbalance, not in counterbalance, or going in and out of counterbalance at different times with different speeds, or different positions. So if there's any questions on that, go ahead and pop them in there. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. All right, I don't see any questions. If you have a question at any time about anything that I covered in the past, you can always pop it in there, even if I've already moved on, and I'll jump back. But I'm going to jump into the next thing. Is there's a concept that I say where you have, when you have a judgment or a rule in a dance, then there's a way, like that rule will usually limit your dancing with people, and it will make your dancing better with people who follow that rule, but it can make your dancing more, I shouldn't say better, but your dancing will sync up more with people who follow that rule, and it will sync up less with people who don't, if you still follow that rule and they don't. So one thing to improve your dancing with everyone is to adjust any rules you hear or any judgments you hear in the particular way of giving a and B option. If my partner does this, I do this. If my partner doesn't do this, does something else, then I do something else that makes it work, right? So in the case of, let's say there's like one of the rules I learned or things that I learned when I was starting to dance was the follow should follow your counterbalance, right? And so, can I borrow you for a sec again? So that was great with dancers who actually did this, right? A follow who follows my counterbalance is great if I have a partner that follows and I sit away and they sit away and I don't and they don't, everything worked fine. But a lot of time when I dance, I had follows who automatically sat back, right, into their dancing. And that would frustrate me and make me, man, okay. And I didn't know what to do with it. I just got really heavy and the dance was less enjoyable for me because I was in this mindset that I was the one that led it and they were following it. So if they didn't follow and they just led it or did it automatically, then it frustrated me and I didn't have as great dances with those dancers. Eventually I realized, oh, let's rethink this rule and just say, if my follow follows my counterbalance, then do everything the way I was taught and lead the counterbalance. So if she follows it, then I'll lead it and I'll play with it and I'll keep that counterbalance as we go and I'll come out of it at times, right? And she's gonna follow, everything's fine. But if she doesn't follow my counterbalance, then the other option is for me to follow hers, right? So if she automatically goes into counterbalance, boom, I go into it too. Now I can still do my dancing and everything's fine. And if she comes out of counterbalance, boom, I just come out of it too. If she goes into it again, I still can do that as well, right? And still follow or still lead the dance, right? If I'm still doing everything else and leading, I'm just following whether or not she goes into counterbalance or not. If she doesn't, I don't. If she does, I do. And then we dance that way, right? And that's the same if we're in a closed position and she leans into me, right? Then I just lean back and match her counterbalance there, right? And dance that dance with that concept. Cool, thank you. So again, the options is if my follow follows my counterbalance, I'm changing the judgment from my follow should follow my counterbalance to if my follow follows my counterbalance, then I lead her through that counterbalance. If she doesn't follow my counterbalance, then I follow her and follow her counterbalance or her lack of counterbalance. If she chooses never to go into counterbalance, that's fine too. So if any questions on that, pop them in. Otherwise, I will move on. Okay, the next concept is about same idea. Let's look at a different example of we have a judgment and how do we change that judgment from a judgment into two positive examples, right? So normally there's a negative example and a positive example when you think of a judgment, right? So the judgment might be arm leading is wrong. Can I borrow you again? So arm leading, commonly thought of as when you use your arms to tell someone to move, right? Some people say doing that is wrong, okay? And instead, I'm gonna look at, well, arm leading is if someone body leads, right? Body leading is more using your body to lead a movement, right? If someone's doing a body lead, then I'm going to follow the way I normally follow, or Christina's going to follow the way she normally follows, and we're just going to go together, right? No matter, again, any dance, as long as she feels that body lead, she follows the way she was taught to follow. However, if she gets an arm lead, rather than it being wrong or negative, right, we're going to look at what can we do to make it amazing? What can we do, like, if someone arm leads, how do I make that awesome. And she has her ways of doing it. I'm going to ask her to do one of the ways that I do, just because I think it's really obvious in visually what you can see. So I'm going to arm lead with my arm by pulling her in, right? And instead of following the way she would normally follow, just moving her body, could you do that first? Just move your body, right? Instead of following the normal way, she's actually going to adjust and match me and use her arm as well. So when I pull, she pulls, and as I move her forward, she moves forward with that arm lead. Did you see how, let's go to zombie position and really make it obvious. So if you see body leading, right, if I pull with my arm, she just moves everything. Her whole body goes, and her arm is still in this zombie position, right? As if I had led a body lead. Boom. But if I'm doing an arm lead, instead of keeping the zombie, she's actually, first we get this connection, and then she's going to actually use her arm, boom, and pull with me. So you can see both of our arms are contracting. So she's doing what I would call an arm follow instead of just a body follow, which, by the way, is also possible in regular dancing. Even if I'm doing a body lead, could we back up a little bit? If I'm doing a body lead, she might do an arm follow, either on purpose or on accident. It's something that's common. As the lead moves like this, the follow could extend her arm, right? Or she could contract it, right? Boom. Oops, I contracted mine too. I won't contract it. So just contract as, yeah. See how her arm is contracting there? Even though mine wasn't. Right, I was doing the traditional body lead, or at least in our dance, in Lindy Hop, a traditional body lead, and she was adding in some arm following. For me, either one is fine. It's just a matter of, are you doing it on purpose? Are you doing it for a reason, or is it a habit? Thank you. And so there's a question that is asked that says, so this principle would extend beyond counterbalance to all dance. I think this is for, yeah, adjusting to the partner. If we're talking about the last one, you adjust to the partner. Absolutely. To me, in everything in dance, you can adjust to your partner. And I think when you're in harmony with your partner, it usually has, for me, a more connected feel. And I love the connection in the dance. So I'm often adjusting to my partner. And each aspect of the dance is its own thing. So if we look at counterbalance as one concept, body leading, arm leading as a separate concept, right? She might be, actually, could we do this again? She might be, let's see, following my counterbalance, right? She might be following the aspect of counterbalance. Let's see, let's do it like this. So I'm leading the counterbalance going in and out really well, like everything's matching there, and she's following that. And at the same time, as we're in this counterbalance and she's matching that, she might actually, as we move somewhere, she might add in an arm follow, just notice that, and I can follow it with her rather than, and go ahead and go out again. Boom. Now notice we're still in the same counterbalance. She followed my counterbalance, but she led the arm movement and I'm following it, and she leads it out and I follow it out. So when I'm dancing, there's certain aspects that I'm leading because she, for whatever reason, she's following them, whether she knows she's following them, it's just something that's new to her, and she naturally follows it, right? And there's other things that the follow will be leading because of whatever reason. They're purposefully doing it because of a stylistic reason, or they're doing it on accident because they just don't know that concept, right? So for me, the one who knows the concept, or the one who's maybe has more experience in the concept, is the one who's going to follow that concept. If in order for the dance to be more connected, that person is going to follow that concept. Of course, there's always exceptions where maybe you don't want to be in counterbalance for some particular reason and your partner does want to be in counterbalance. You don't have to be in counterbalance. There's other ways of making the dance balance and work. It's just then we're getting into more complex ways of dancing that ideally would have, I think as you get more complex, you're going outside of your basic, outside of the defaults. And then there needs to be more reason behind it for it to make sense to your partner, to you, to everyone else, right? So an example of that might be, if we look at the counterbalance example, she might go into counterbalance. Go ahead, small amount, yeah. And instead of me going into counterbalance, notice I'm not in counter. I'm really using my whole body, like the muscles in my body, to counter her rather than just sitting into it. Then I can relax the rest of my muscles at least a little bit more than normal, and use my weight to balance her. But I don't have to. Go ahead and stay in counterbalance. I'm going to come out of it again and use more of my strength in my body, right? And that might be because I want to create some movement that looks different than hers for some reason. I can't think of a movement right now that I would want to do that I couldn't do in counterbalance, because for me, even if I'm doing something like this, I could go ahead and do it. Oh, I don't need that. I could do it in counterbalance as well, where I'm doing the same movement and just making it a little easier by not having to use my strength. But sometimes you're not thinking about it, whatever reason, there's other ways to get around matching your partner and whatever they're doing. But as a default, I tend to match my partner as a default and then choose other things because they make sense, rather than a default just randomly being different than my partner and then choosing something to match my partner occasionally. But there's probably other styles of dance that actually have the vice versa. So my goal is more for you to be choosing one or the other, consciously choosing them, rather than having a habit of always doing the same thing. All right, let's see. Christina, can you show what you do sometimes besides the arm thing for your dancing? You know how you said you do something different when a lead is arm leading? Do you know what it is, or maybe not?
I think we kind of did it. So.
Well, we did my thought on it, but I know you mentioned that you have a different way.
But we covered it.
Okay. Another thing to look at when you're arm leading, or another way to look at a dance, sometimes you don't have an option. Like sometimes you're trying to make something improve, but you don't necessarily have an option. You don't know how to make it improve, right? So in the example of the arm leading portion, we can arm lead, and someone might say arm leading is wrong, and you can reframe that and go, no, it's not that arm leading is wrong. It's just if the lead is leading with his body, then I can dance the way I was taught and make it feel great, because I know that way works when the lead is leading with his body. So you know that because they taught you how to dance with someone who's doing it with their body. But if they've taught you, or you've learned for some reason that arm leading is wrong, you've got to take that and adjust that side of it to be something that, at least if you don't know how to make it right, at least open up your mind to the possibility of it being right? So I would reword that to be, if the lead is leading with his arms, I'll find a way to make it feel great, right? And so you might not know what that way is. You might not have arm following as a technique, but you might find a way to make it feel great anyway. And it might be something completely different. You might stumble upon arm following because of that. That's personally how I came up with the concept of arm following, is that I just went, well, what do we do if someone does lead with their arms? How do we adjust to that? And so eventually, like at first it was, well, let's just figure it out. Let's just make it feel great. And I just kept trying to make it feel great. And honestly, a lot of times you can make it feel great without having any particular thing other than let's just go for it. Somehow our body finds a way, and it works a lot of the time. And then, but even if it doesn't, at least it keeps you open to the possibility of finding a way, rather than just closing it off and being like, no, arm leading is wrong. It feels bad. It doesn't work, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? So, so for me, that's the key aspect. Is I always look at when something is taught as wrong, or it should be done one way, shouldn't be done another way, something like that. Then I'm always looking to reframe that to be like, well, if it is done that way, what can I do to make it awesome? Let's see. If there's any more questions on any of this so far, again, pop them in. I'm going to jump on to the next topic. So I also want to look at how does this work with musicality, because it can work with musicality as well. A lot of times we're told we should dance in a particular way, because and usually I find it's often because of the music that we have that in place, right? Actually, I want to answer a question before we jump into musicality. I see a question on the squishy arms that I want to cover. And so the question is, how do we have an amazing dance with a newcomer with squishy arms? So squishy arms is kind of this, you know, like spaghetti arms. Like there's no actual resistance in the arms. So if I do this, nothing happens with my follow. They don't move, right? So there's a couple of things that I can do to set up a successful dance with someone who has squishy arms, we'll call it, right? One of the things is to recognize that their arm is connected to their body, right? At some point, like even if I go like this, nothing, 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 boom, there's a point where there is a connection to her body, right? And that's the point where I can lead something with a partner. So if I'm dancing with someone who has no frame until their body connects to a frame, all I do is I wait until that moment that it gets that connection, and then I go, okay, let's move somewhere, right? And same thing now, same thing. There's going to be a point, nothing happens, but eventually something will happen, and I can move them again, right? So I usually try to back my own body up or back their body up, or do something to get that connection before I lead something. And that's a key. Anytime I want to lead something, I can lead it. Can you be squishy arms? And I apologize ahead of time for this. But watch the difference. I'm going to lead squishy arms from this point. I'm going to say, okay, I want you to go rock step, right? Or pushing her back. I'm going to go rock step, right? And that's me leading before I have connection. So it kind of feels like I'm just doing this to my partner. It kind of feels like I'm just going boom, right? And running into them, rather than me going, okay, let me get the connection to them first and then move them, right? So it's just like this arm is a rope tied to a car, or to a person, whatever. It's tied to something. And I want to get that rope taut before I lead my partner. So now that it's taut, now I can go rock and she'll go somewhere, right? Same thing here. Now it's wait till it's taut and then I can unravel her. But if I try to unravel her before it's taut and just start pulling, we get that yank from our partner that doesn't feel nice on them. Or it might not feel nice on them, right? I mean, maybe it's not a big deal to them. Maybe it's just a small yank, no big deal. But for some, it might be painful, and it could even dislodge their shoulder or something. So I'm always waiting. Same thing when I'm pushing through somebody, like there's no connection, no connection, no connection, but at some point there actually is a connection in their body that I can then make them do a rock step, right? And most follows have that connection point before, like if you go back, they're not going to let their arm go all the way back, right? But if you really wanted to, I mean, and led someone that way, you could get them to do a rock step by doing that. And if they were complete spaghetti arms, you would have to go rock, and then you would have to get a full length connection with them before you could bring them back. And if it was that case, I might just choose not to lead rock steps rather than try to go from this connection to that connection so quickly, right? And that's in a rock step. But in any movement, whether you're leading your partner forward or sideways is another great example. A lot of the time this happens in dance where you try to get them to go sideways, but nothing happens, nothing, until you get out here, and now there's a connection to their body and you can lead them sideways, right? So that's might be what I do is I bring it out far enough to get that connection to move my partner. A lot of times I just skip if the arms are that, what's the word, squishy, then I just skip and I go straight to their back and I lead stuff from their back and I dance with their back the whole time. And sometimes that's the thing is, to have a great dance with anyone, it's about having enough tools. Thanks, Christina. It's about having enough tools in your arsenal to be that rock, like really cool things to do, that you don't need to use the ones that that aren't working with that partner, right? So if the arm thing is something that's cool and you want to use, but it's not working, you have another way, something else, but like using the back that works, that rocks. And then you can still use the arms occasionally, but you use them at those moments where it makes sense, where you've backed up enough, right? And maybe I should show it from like a variety of dancing, like while I'm dancing a lot. So let's say when I start a movement and she's squishy, I'm going to start by backing up and then I'm going to lead the movement, right? And then same thing when she goes away, I'm going to try to find the point and prep the movement so that she's at her point before I need to lead the next step. She's at her distance far away from me before I need to lead the next thing. And then same here, I'm going to wait. Sorry, it's hard to see there. I'm going to wait until this point where we've got that connection to lead the next step. So I'm always trying to prep movement and get away from her the moment before I need to lead the next thing, so that I have that distance and her body's connected to her arm, rather than trying to lead it from maybe the more normal distance of this distance, right? Or some smaller distance where I want to lead it and nothing happens until I get that movement going. And that can work too. It just it might have a delay to it where I go and then she goes a beat after me or something. Okay, so now I want to look at musicality, and let's look at how adjusting a judgment in musicality, or a judgment that fits musicality, can be adjusted so that you improve your dancing in a variety of ways. So one of the judgments I hear, or rules I hear in Lindy Hop, is that you should bounce down on every beat. Now, there are other styles that don't bounce at all, that bounce up, that bounce forward, backward, all sorts of different things. But if you learn from someone that says bounce down on every beat, I say, great, do that, learn that, and at the same time recognize that there's a purpose behind that. And if you find that purpose, you can also find out what the benefit of bouncing in other ways might be, right? And if there's a musicality purpose, then you can find out more ways to be musical. So the example, bounce down on every beat, well, let's think about why we would bounce down. Maybe bouncing down has a heavier, earthier feel to it. And so when you move, it feels more grounded in the dance. Whereas if you bounce up, right, and, oh, sorry, depends when you boom, boom, and you have an upward bounce feel to your movement, maybe it feels lighter and more heavenly to you, right? So when you dance, you can choose to do either the going down feeling in the music, right? Or you can look at, let's do the up feeling. Boom, and make it more heavenly, more light feeling in the dance. Now, it's not to say that's the only thing that makes it feel light or heavenly or things like that, right? You could still bounce down, boom, and have a heavenly feel as you're bouncing down, right? Or probably have an earthier feel when you're bouncing up. It's just to look at one aspect of your bounce and to have a reason behind it, and then look at, well, what if I do the opposite? Does that add complexity to my dance so that as I'm bouncing down, boom, and then something changes in the music and I bounce up, shoop, and give a different feel, then I can not be doing something, or then I can be using this for a musical purpose with partners, right? Rather than just doing it because it's the style of dance that we do. It's what everyone did before us. And if you think, the people who did the dances before us, they didn't just do it because someone told them that's the way to do it. They did it because it felt good in their body for some reason. It felt good with their partner. It felt good to the music. There were these reasons behind everything. So, and sometimes they don't even know what those reasons are, but they feel them. And that's what we want. What I want is for you guys to be choosing and feeling and choosing things because they feel a particular way and they feel good with your partner with the music, rather than doing them because that's the only way you know how to move, right? I don't want you to move and bounce down because that's the only way you know how to move. I want you to choose to bounce down, choose to bounce up based on each partner, every song, because for you in that song with that partner at that moment, it feels like the thing that works the best, right? And also, you're just going to notice some partners bounce differently than others. Even though I talked about up and down, there's a variety of different ways to bounce up and down. For example, you can go up when you, there's change of weight, right? So we can change weight from one foot to the other, right? Let me move back here. And when I change weight, I can move from one foot to the other. You can do this with me if you're at home. This is very easy to do. And I'm not really changing the height at all right now. So I could do it without any height change, or I could go up. I could go up as I'm about to change weight. And once I change weight, come down, up, come down after I've changed weight. Or I could change weight first and then go up and come down, change weight, go up, come down, boom, shoom, boom, right? So there's two ways right there where I could go up and then transfer weight, come down, up, transfer weight, come down, or cross over, transfer weight, go up, come down, transfer weight, go up, come down, right? So either one could be used, and we might call both of these an up bounce, right? And same thing with the bounce down, a down bounce. There's probably different ways that you can do them. And the more ways you learn to move your body, the more you can adjust to each partner and make it feel like you're actually dancing with that partner and creating dance with them specifically, rather than you have your way of dancing, they have their way of dancing. And if it meshes or not, it's based on kind of luck of the draw that you both learned from the same teacher or something like that. All right, if there's any questions, again, pop them in. The next question I had was for on the solo spins. So we have a drill in the solo spin class, or sorry, balance. I think it's called, what is it called? Improving your balance and spins, the step-by-step process. So in that core lesson, we have someone is doing them, and she's working on the solo spin drill, which is the one where you go like this. Oh, my. So when you're working on the solo spin drill, where you go quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, then you switch feet and do it again, and then do the opposite direction on both feet, and then you try doing half turns, right? And you keep working each all the way up 3/4 turn, full turns and stuff. She's working on this drill, and she noticed that at about 30 seconds she gets dizzy, and how to work on doing this without getting dizzy. And there's a few things that we can do to avoid getting dizzy. Christina had the suggestion of using spotting, right? Do you want to show spotting? Like I can try to show it, but I'm not the best spotter in the world. So if I'm doing 1/4 turns, I guess I'd go like that, right? And I'd still be here, and then I would go 1/4 turn, 1/4 turn. Oh, I did okay, yeah. So that would be the way to practice it on 1/4 turns, which is hard, right? Keep facing, keep looking at the camera, keep looking at the camera as best you can, and then right here, you're gonna whip it around, and then keep it facing the camera for that last 1/4 turn. So not bad. But if you're going full turns, that's where you're really going to try to spot the camera, and I think you probably do it better than I do. Do you want to show?
So you define spotting.
But you can define spotting. I haven't, and speak up though, because.
Oh, okay. So spotting is basically where you are letting your body rotate, but your head is basically staying in one place as long as possible. Now there will be a moment during the turn where your head won't be able to snap back, because most people don't have that much flexibility in their necks. But you just basically get your head back to that same spot as quickly as you can. It's really helpful in, like, for instance, dances like salsa, where you're just getting turned over and over and over again.
So you see, she's spotting me in that case.
Right. It's really helpful to keep yourself from getting dizzy. So the exercise I like to use to practice spotting, because you want to be able to allow your body to turn and continue to turn, but just have your head do something completely different. The exercise that I like to use for spotting is just practicing that, where you're going to start your body rotating at a certain rate. It can be slow, it can be fast, it doesn't matter. Slow is usually easier at the beginning. And then you find something on the wall at head height or a little bit higher, and you look at it as long as you can, and you let your body continue to rotate, and then with your head you find that spot again as quickly as you can. But notice as my body's rotating that, again, my head isn't snapping completely all the way around until my body basically allows for it. And so that's training your body to keep rotating and your head to do something else. Some people accidentally or practice their spotting by doing this, and then they stop their body and then they come back, but that's actually training your body to stop when your head snaps. So that's why I like that exercise that I showed you, where your body gets to keep rotating while your head is coming back, and that really helps keep from getting dizzy.
And the other thing about when you're social dancing that's really cool about what she just said is when you're social dancing, the lead is expecting you to rotate at a specific speed, right? So without spotting, it's probably pretty easy to go at that speed without spotting. She spotted, but that's fine. Either way, you can go at it, but without spotting, there's no distraction from following the speed that I want, right? So if I lead a certain speed, she goes that speed. If I lead a little bit faster, she goes a little bit faster, right? If I lead slower, she goes slower. When you add in the head rotation, one of the easy things that happens is that the head will either speed up or slow down the rotation of the body. Could you show a speed up? But first do it once at the speed that I'm leading without head rotation. So first we're going to do it. This is the speed I'm leading. Now let's say she tries to do it on this next one, right? She added in the head spin and it sped up the lower body, which is fine. If a fellow does that leads, you just recognize, oh, she's going faster, and you work with that. But as a follow, if you're trying to follow his lead, right, then you want to use the spot without affecting your body, right, so that your body still moves
with the leader.
Thank you. Yeah, with his lead, with the speed of his lead, very specifically. And this is true in any dance, not just salsa, obviously, any dance that has any kind of spin in it. But even if it's not a spin, like if you think about even just a rotation of where I'm leading her to go this way, right? If for some reason she thought of that as a rotation where her head whips around, right? Which we could do something where we both look the other direction, but we still want to do it in a way that matches our body instead of in a way, could you speed it up this time, where she's speeding everything up because of it. The other thing that I like what you mentioned was when you are practicing, I can show this one. When you are practicing these quarter turns, right, there's two things that you can do, or any quarter turn, half turn, doesn't matter. There's two ways to look at practicing these to help with the dizziness, right? So if you're getting dizzy, it's because of the ear fluid, like the fluid in your ears is not balanced, and it's messing with your perception or your head space, I guess. So if you do, say, 10 spins in a row one way, right? I'm all doing them to the right, right? Then I could get my head will be all like, all the fluid will be going one direction. Whereas if I go one way this time and then the next time I do it the other way, it balances things out. So I can do that in two different ways. One, I can practice the drill where I go, okay, I'm going to go quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. Okay, now I'm going to go the other way, same foot, quarter turn, let's boom, right? Or I didn't do those. That was kind of a sloppy quarter turn, sorry. But I can do it that way, or I can also just practice all one direction. Let's say I want to focus on my rotation to the right. So I do my quarter turns, I do my half turns, but before I start getting dizzy, say it takes 30 seconds to get dizzy, then at the 20-second mark, I go, okay, let's just unravel. And I do one spin, like not even no technique or anything. I just rotate my head the other way, right? And I don't know if you need to do it once or twice or however many times, but you just kind of reset your body by not even practicing, but just rotating your body. And then you go back to practicing the one you want to do. If you want to really focus on one direction at a time. But another easy way to do it would just be to constantly be going back and forth between the rotating to the right, rotating to the left. Yeah, and of course spotting is going to help all of that as well. But I don't want you to think that you have to spot. I know there's plenty of people out there that actually can do a ton of spins without spotting. And then there's other ways to spot as well. You can spot the ceiling, and some people can actually do a bunch of spins where their head is up. I don't know if I can do this or not. I've never tried it, but if I go like this, whoo, yeah, that makes me a little bit more dizzy personally. I can really feel it, but huh? Yeah.
Just kind of along with the lines of what he just said, like you can spot anything you want. So sometimes you spot the direction of your travel. Sometimes you spot your partner. One thing that can potentially affect the dizziness of your body is actually your head angle. Because you basically have a tube of fluid in all three dimensions, and they all will affect your perception of being dizzy. So if I'm used to spinning this way, my body will actually acclimate to it and get used to it. But if I then start spinning like this, I'm accessing a different set of fluid, and my body's not used to that anymore. So you can actually make yourself more dizzy when you start practicing actually tilting your head in different directions than you're used to. I remember, because I teach ballroom dance, when I used to practice this type of turn with shape in it, at the beginning, I wasn't used to having my body at that angle, and so it made me dizzy. Or this one, where you get sped underneath this way. Same thing. So when you're practicing, also just pay attention to your posture and where your head is, because that will also affect you.
That's cool. So really, practice is what's going to overcome it as well. So if you notice, it takes about 30 seconds before you get dizzy, right? Practice the same method a few more times. Maybe it'll take 45 seconds the next time, or maybe it'll just stop getting dizzy at some point because you've practiced that method. But recognize that when you go to a different method, you might have to start all over and acclimate to that style as well, which is exactly why I probably got dizzy right there looking up, is because I've never actually tried that before. So I need to acclimate myself. I don't need to, but I'd like to acclimate myself to that so that I can do that cool kind of spin too. All right, let's see if there's any questions on that topic. Go ahead and pop them in. Otherwise, I have one more question. And we've got about 5 more minutes. So perfect. And again, if you have any questions that are not related to this, feel free again to pop them in. All right, so this question is, I would like to get better at solo jazz swing dancing. Is there a way to use or interpret your core lessons for solo dancing? Now, this is kind of a two-part question. So yes, there's a way to interpret my core lessons for solo dancing. For solo swing and jazz dancing, I don't particularly in these lessons try to stylize any particular way. So if you want a very specific style of dance, then I recommend like going and taking vocabulary type dance courses where you're learning very specific movements. What I will say is that no matter what style of dance you do, there's certain aspects that you want to try to keep similar so that it's not just randomly going to different things. So for instance, when you learn to bounce down versus bounce up, right, you want to pick one of those and do that. If you're doing a specific style of dance, you want to do that one as your core concept of what kind of your basic default way to move is you bounce down. And then when you bounce up, it's out of choice to make something different, right? So whatever your moves you're learning in swing dancing, we have a ton of stuff. If we're just learning crazy legs, we can do it without bouncing. We can bounce down as we do it, right? Or we can bounce, I haven't tried bouncing up before, but bounce up as we do it, right? See that difference? Bounce down versus bounce up. It's hard. It's all about when you're moving your body up versus when you're placing your feet on the ground, right? So if you're placing your feet on the ground as you're transitioning, boom, and you're at your lowest point during the beat. So it's 1, 2, 3, versus if you're at your highest point, 2, 3, 4, 5. When the beat hits and when you're transitioning, usually transitioning your weight. So we can bounce down as we do crazy legs, right? We can bounce down as we kick, boom. As we do our kick ball change, down and down, 1 and 2, or we can go 1 and 2, up and up, bounce and bounce, right? Whatever style of dance you're doing, you want to keep everything the same as you're doing it, always going down until one point after everybody's used to that and they feel like, okay, this person's doing this all down, then you change it and you go ba, 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 ooh, ba, da, for a moment in the dance, and then you go back to the way you normally dance, right? Or even if it's no bounce at all, maybe everything you do has no bounce, and then a moment in the dance comes where you want to accent something, you can change the way you dance. And that's really something that I talk a lot about in classes when I'm talking about choreography. Let me see. So if you're doing any kind of choreography class, you want to have a basic you want to change or adjust that basic slightly, change it completely, and come back to it are kind of the three things that you want to do when you're creating any kind of choreography. And that doesn't have to be like a choreography, a performance choreography. We can talk about a social dance. If you're just social dancing with a partner, whether you're a lead or a follow, doesn't matter. There's certain things that you're going to do that are kind of your basic core concepts. And there's things that you want to do to change it up. And then you want to come back to your basic. That's the standard. Do a basic, change it up, go back to your basic. And you might go back to your basic with the increased complexity in it, right? So if you think about in Lindy Hop, our basic is a swing out. So we do basic, basic, basic in a circle, right? 3 basics in a circle. We've done basic, basic. We go slightly away from it, and then we might come back and do 3 more basics and then a circle. And then we might go completely away from it and do Charleston, right? And we do that for a little while, and then we come back to our 3 swing outs in a circle. So it's kind of like we're doing, oh, but in that last time when we come back to the 3 swings outs in a circle, maybe we add some complexity into it and do a swing out with underarm turn, a swing out with a Texas Tommy. Like, so the same thing, but slightly different to add a little complexity to our basic. But it's still the same concept. Do your basic, go away from it, come back to your basic. That helps create great stories, great, I don't want to say great, it helps create stories. It creates a theme for your dance. And there's actually, in the bonus video classes, for those of you that have access to the bonus video classes, under the bonus section of Dance Ninjas, there is a class called Choreographing on the Fly, aka Creating a Story. I just put it in. That class is able to be accessed, and let me give you the link for it. It's danceninjas.customerhub.net/future-topics is the site that if you go to that link and scroll down to Choreographing on the Fly, Creating a Story, I really delve into the aspects of creating a story. And that for me is the key to solo dancing is besides whatever vocabulary you learn and have, is using that vocabulary in a way that tells a story and uses consistency and change and dynamics, right? Change is basically a way to show dynamics. So it uses those consistency and dynamics in order to tell that story. And let's see. The other thing I would say, if you want to get some vocabulary, I do have DVDs for sale that are vocabulary-based Lindy Hop DVDs. And I'll put that in the thing. It's at smoothsavoy.com. That's SMOOTHSAVOY.com. /videos-for-sale.php. But really, if you just go to smoothsavoy.com and hover over the tab that says videos instruction, you'll see there's actually something called Styling and Footwork for Lindy, volumes 1 and 2. And you can purchase those DVDs, and I'll send them out to you. They're awesome DVDs for vocabulary of styling things up in a Lindy Hop fashion. And the really cool thing about it is that it's not one person teaching. So you don't get one style. You actually, I think there's like 13 different instructors, all traveling instructors, national and international instructors that are teaching. Each one teaches 1 or 2 moves. I can't remember. I think it's 2 moves each. And I'm one of those teachers. So on each volume, there should be 2 of my moves. Don't quote me on that. Might be 1, but it should say more about it on that link if you're interested in really kind of honing your Lindy Hop styling. And I know another great way is just to look online for free video clips of Lindy Hop styling or solo swing styling, and you'll see a plenty of other cool ways to find awesome styles of dance and solo dancing. The other thing that I would say, one other way to look at my lessons and how they improve your solo dancing, because the core lessons do improve your solo dancing, especially if you look at the musicality lesson, right? The music, how to instantly be musical, that you don't need a partner for, and that will improve your dancing regardless of whether you have a partner or not. The So Good You Want Seconds, again, if you're looking at the if you look at the taking action side of it, of how to take action to overcome your struggles and that side of that lesson, then that's all about improving your own ability to get things done, basically, to improve the way you learn and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot in that lesson that doesn't necessarily require improving with a partner. There are parts that are about making every dance amazing, which is specific to how to react to a partner to make it amazing. But there's a lot of things like the CBAT technique. The CBAT technique is a technique where it's all about overcoming a struggle, whatever that struggle is. So if you want to learn more about solo dancing, maybe that's your struggle is, I don't know how to learn more about solo dancing. So you use the CBAT technique to overcome that struggle. And basically, CBAT is, C is choose. You choose the struggle you want to work on. We've got that. Brainstorm. You brainstorm a bunch of different solutions without judging them. You just get as many solutions down in like 5 minutes or 1 minute, however long you want to spend on it. I recommend not going more than 5 minutes for something like this, and just write down a bunch of different possible ways of improving your solo dancing. Watching YouTube videos, taking private lessons, just doing what you already know, looking in a mirror and correcting yourself. And you write all those down, then you analyze them. That's the A. You look at what are the benefits and negatives of each of these, right? Private lessons cost money. Do I have the money to do that, right? Some of them might take more motivation than others. Some of them are easy to get motivated on, right? Doing a YouTube clip might be the easy way to inspire you. But you analyze all of them, and then T is train. You choose the one that you want to do and you train it, right? So out of all those options you came up with, pick the one that you think will work best for you. Might not be the best one, like as in the most effective overall for anybody, but it's got to be the one that's most effective for you, right? You know, whatever it is about you that, like, if you don't have the money, then maybe the private lesson one is technically the best option, but it's not the best one for you, right? The best one for you might be those free YouTube clips. But anyway, there's several different techniques in that lesson that are all about overcoming your particular struggles, which can be related to solo dancing as well. Also, the other great lesson for solo dancing is how and when to be grounded, because learning how to ground your own body without a partner is key when you're doing solo dancing, right? Especially at the edges of solo dancing. In other words, the moment I want to ground is not, I mean, you can ground during every moment of solo dancing, but really the moments are those edges. So if you look at right here in this movement where I'm going boom, the edge is right there. And then I move into the next thing and there's the next edge. So at that moment is the point where I really want to feel my whole body sink up, and then I can release it, and then boom, sink up and everything's grounded, and then I release it. Same thing if I'm doing triple step, grounding right at the edge of that triple step, because now I'm changing directions with my triple step and I'm grounding everything. So a lot of times you want to ground things at particular moments in your dancing. Of course, you could try to ground them through every moment, but sometimes we want them at particular moments. And that's where learning how to be grounded and what that feels like can really help your solo dancing. All right. So for those of you that want either the styling and footwork for Lindy Hop Volume 1 and Volume 2, again, you can get them at smoothsavoy.com. videosforsale.php. And again, you can just go to smoothsavoy.com and then hover over the tab that says videos, and there's a tab that will drop down that says instruction. Click on that and it will open up the styling and footwork for Lindy video volumes. Well, actually there's 6 different DVDs that you can get, but the ones that are most for styling for solo dancing, technically I don't think they're for solo dancing, they're for partner dance, but they're all moves that you could do for solo dancing as well, because they're designed in that way. So that would be what I would recommend there. And then if you want the choreographing concepts, you can find the choreographing on the fly on the member site, danceninjas.customerhub.net. That's the member site under the tab Future Topics, which I think actually that's the URL, but the top or the drop down will say bonus lessons, and then hover over it and it'll say additional bonus videos for future classes. Let me see. It says bonuses, and then when it drops down, it says bonus video classes and possible future core lessons. And then you can scroll down about halfway down the page or so, and you'll see a choreographing on the fly. Actually, I think it's more like 3/4 down the page. You'll see choreographing on the fly or creating a story. Yeah, so those are it. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. And thanks for joining.